G'day everyone, welcome to Footyology TV, live from the studios of Southern FM in Brighton. How are you, Finey?
Yeah, I'm well. What a round of football, and it ended literally with a bang.
It did. We're going to discuss all that. An incredible round, 5 games decided by a total of 15 points. But perhaps in news terms, all of the dramatic goings on of Saturday superseded quite incredibly by one incident in the WA Derby. And if you're not up to speed on this, I'm sure you will be hearing a lot about it over the next couple of days. Andrew Gaff, arguably West Coast's most important player, an off-the-ball incident, basically a roundhouse right, I think, to the jaw of Fremantle's Andrew Brayshaw. Brayshaw taken off the field. At this stage, we don't know the extent of his injuries, but it didn't look good. Bloodied mouth, loose teeth.
Suspected broken jaw.
And basically, I think Andrew Gaff may not be playing again this season.
So out of character for Andrew Gaff. It's
Can't believe it.
You know, but then again, he's a player who is tagged and run with players, you know. I'm not justifying what he did, but, you know, they break and they shrug tags, and I guess it's been compared to the Thomas Bugg incident. So weeks-wise, he'll be lucky to get changed out of 6 weeks, I would have thought. Yeah, well, without going into the particular, Bugg did have a bit of a track record. I don't know if that came into that suspension, but he did get 6 weeks. We've had a look at that incident again. That was a strike on Sydney's Callum Mills late last season. It was a shocker, but they do look like pretty comparable incidents, I've got to say. Enormous ramifications for the Eagles. Can they win a flag without him? Well, it sort of gets back to the same thing you were asking after Nat Nui got injured, wasn't it? I think the cumulative loss of those two is starting to make me have my doubts. And I've been a big believer in West Coast. I think we've both felt they're probably Richmond's biggest challenges for the flag. Yeah.
But if there's no Nat Nui and no Gaff,
well, Kennedy is now we're struggling to see him before the finals, and Schofield did his hamstring today. Yeah, so all going wrong at the wrong end of the season. So it'll be sent straight to the tribunal, obviously. Absolute minimum of 3. Some people might think maybe, you know, if a guilty plea, maybe you could get down to 4. But 6, that's the season, isn't it? Unless they were to finish top 2, lose a qualifying final, win the preliminary, and get back to the grand final. And of course, he'd come straight back into the side. But it's an absolute disaster for him. You can't really. I know people tend to hype these things up a bit, but it's a bit hard to overstate how cataclysmic that could be. On the back of Nat Nui, as you said, their 2 major stars are out of commission, and for very different reasons. Cue the corny headlines, of course. A Gaff. Yeah. It was more than a gaff. It was maybe you should change your surname to a complete brain fade.
Absolutely. I should very remiss of me not to mention at the outset too. We want your input on this show. That's half the reason we do it. It's not the whole reason, but we do love having your input. So get on the Facebook page, send through your questions, comments, jibes, you name it. We'll answer it. You know, as long as it's not too abusive. But we're both used to that as well. So fire away and we'll respond to as much as we possibly can. I think we should talk about the ladder, Finey, because after that amazing weekend of footy, it is in an incredible state of flux. To wit, GWS, just as an example, I think they might have started today in about 7th spot. They're up to 3rd with that massive win over Carlton. I'll run through it quickly. We don't have the graphic, unfortunately, to go with it, but picture this. Richmond on top, 60 points, 135.7. West Coast second, 56 points, 124.1. A 6-point gap now to the Eagles and GWS in 3rd. So the Eagles will finish second and get a home final. I reckon you could back that in. GWS, 3rd spot, 50 points, 120.8.
I guess, and we should mention that percentage are relevant for them because of the draw. So they want to win well, but they'll set themselves apart with the draw. Yeah,
we can talk about their draw later. Melbourne, then we've got a cluster of 5 teams on 48 points. Melbourne, 132.8. Hawthorn, 121.4. Collingwood, 117.1. Port Adelaide, 114.9. Sydney, 109.6. Outside the 8, Geelong, 44 points, 118.8. North Melbourne, 44 points, 110.1. And then the still technically a chance, but we all know they're not going to make it. Essendon, 40 points, 102.3. Adelaide, 40 points, 98.6. How have you done your ladder predictor and tried to sort them out?
Look, no, I haven't, because I think it's an exercise in folly, actually. Well, look, it's easy to say that certain teams have a more favourable run home, and they do, but here's a little bit of proof that it might be the less obvious games that will come back to haunt teams. Mm. Bar Collingwood, who I don't think have really lost a game that they would say absolutely they should have won.
Yeah.
Geelong will rue the round 15 loss to the Bulldogs by 2 points.
Yep.
Essendon losing to Carlton. I mean, it's all encapsulated there, isn't it?
Yeah.
GWS drawing with St Kilda.
Yep.
Hawthorn, 2 losses to Brisbane, but the one in Tasmania beyond the pale.
Yep.
Melbourne losing to St Kilda.
Yep.
North Melbourne losing to the Suns in round 1.
Yes.
Port Adelaide losing to Fremantle.
Yep.
And of course, the daddy of them all, Swans losing to Gold Coast in round 18. And West Coast, that home loss to Essendon, I think, probably won't end up haunting them with a ladder position, because they will get top 2, but they'll be haunted by something else come season's end.
Yeah, well, the run home for several of those sides on 48 points is problematic, to say the least. So Melbourne have got... I have done a ladder predictor. I'll run through it quickly. I've got Richmond, West Coast 1 and 2. I've actually got, this may be optimistic, I've got Collingwood finishing 3rd. People have said to me, how? Well, I think they'll beat Brisbane this week at home. I think they'll beat Port at the MCG, and I rate Port. And I think they'll beat Fremantle in Perth away, because Fremantle will have nothing left to play for. Injuries obviously becoming the big butt about the Pies. But on that basis, I've got them finishing 3rd. I've got GWS finishing 4th. I've got Melbourne finishing 5th. Winning 2 of their last 3. Tough run, the Demons. Sydney, West Coast away, and then GWS. I've got them winning Sydney and GWS on the MCG.
So Sydney at the MCG?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Hawthorn, I've got finishing 6th. They have Geelong this week. St Kilda at Etihad. Sydney away in the last round, which I've got them losing. Mm-hmm. I've got them beating the Cats. Now, if you're looking for one game, there are several crucial games, but I'd say almost the most important game in the final 3 rounds is Geelong-Hawthorn coming up in round 21. Basically, the side that wins, I've got making the finals, and the side that loses, I think, will miss out.
Isn't that great, given the tradition that fixture already
It's
has?
Appropriate. I've got Port Adelaide finishing 7th. They've got West Coast at home, tough. They've got Collingwood away. They've got Essendon at home. So I've got 2 out of 3 for Port. And finishing 8th, I've actually got North Melbourne sneaking. Yes. Well, they've got the best draw of these sides in contention. They play the Bulldogs at Etihad. They've got Adelaide away. I've given you a win for that, which is obviously a dicey proposition, but I think if the Crows are out of the running, there's every chance North can win that. And I've got them beating St Kilda in the last game. So
they can have that one.
At the very least, 2 out of 3, and I think a big chance to win them all. So I've got the Cats missing out, and that is despite winning their last 2 games against Freo Geelong. They've got Hawthorn this week. Like we said, massive, massive clash. Sydney in 10th spot. I've got them losing to Melbourne at the MCG, losing to GWS, beating Hawthorn in the last game, but that's problematic. I've got them missing out regardless of winning that. And 11th spot, I've got the Bombers, and 12th, I've got Adelaide. So
just for argument's sake, Essendon can win their... they've got Richmond, though, don't they? Because they've got St Kilda next week. They'll win that.
Yeah, and then they've got Richmond at the G and Port Adelaide at Adelaide Oval.
Okay, and Adelaide's?
Adelaide have got GWS in Canberra, North Melbourne at home, and Carlton away.
Okay. Probably can't make it. Gee, what a finish we're in for.
It's classic. All right, let's go through these games in detail, because it was an incredible round of footy. It is time now for the wraparound. All right, I thought I'd get the painful one out of the way first, Finey. Hawthorn, Essendon.
Yep.
Turn the clock back this one, just in terms of epic games. You know, when you talk about, look, everyone goes back to the 80s about Hawthorn, Essendon. They talk about the line in the sand game, which as a game was a bit of a stinker. there hasn't necessarily been that many great football games between Hawthorn and Essendon in the last 30 years. Well, this was one of them. I thought it was an epic, and the number of times momentum swung. Essendon 3 times got 3 goals or more out in front. Each time the Hawks came back, bang, 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 reeled them in. And then in the last quarter, it switched. The Hawks were controlling the game for the first 10, 15 minutes. They got, I think, 21 points up about 12, 13 minutes into the quarter, and then Essendon gave it one last shot. And then even in the last minute and a half, so Hooker kicks a goal, there's about a minute left. James Warple kicks what appears for all intents and purposes to be the match winner for the Hawks. Only 35 seconds left then. And still, the Dons come again. I think Travis Collier kicked that last goal, 13 seconds left on the clock. It was just a cracker of a game. I think ultimately Essendon made too many errors, and I think Hawthorn's strength and big game experience really shone through.
David Dobbs is our first communicator tonight. Evening, Rowan Finey. Evening, David. I think I witnessed the game of the season on Saturday afternoon. Reminded me of the 1984 second semi-final. Can't wait for next Saturday with my beloved Hawks and our other much-hated rival.
Yeah, good on you, David. I noticed you didn't bring up the 84 grand final. That's my favourite game. No, you're right. The 84 second semi is often ranked by people the best game of footy ever. It's certainly up there. And the twists and turns of that, I think, were quite comparable to this one. I mean, when you're talking about... This is why I still rate Hawthorn as a big chance, particularly if they can sneak a top 4 spot, which they're every chance to do. That big game experience is absolutely invaluable. Who were their best players? Gunston, terrific, 5 goals. Luke Bruce, bobbed up just when he needed to bob up. I will talk about Ben Stratton a bit later.
Yep.
But they're big guns. Sean Burgoyne, just in the moments they needed him in the last quarter.
Yep.
Their big guns fire when they need them to, and for that reason alone, I think they're always a chance.
So the big talking point out of the game, of course, at half-time, Tom Mitchell's on 29 possessions. And, look, these are not meaningless possessions. These are possessions that quantifiably add to the midfield success or failure of the Hawks. And with that many possessions, the question was, should he have a hard tag? Now, he slowed down in the second half. I mean, the scores aren't all that different in the two halves, really. No. What was your take at half-time, and what's your take post-game? Is he a player that should or should not be tagged?
Well, there's a view... Yeah, it's a tough one. I think you've got to have the right sort of player to go with him. And I'm not sure that Essendon necessarily could sacrifice anyone out of that midfield. I think their midfield had needed all hands on deck playing an attacking, positive brand of footy. They would have had to sacrifice someone to do that job on him. Who could have done it is the other question.
Yep.
I don't know. Could I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. A Darcy Parish, maybe. But I think Essendon's midfield...
McGrath?
Yeah, didn't play a great game, so maybe at half-time they could have gone, McGrath's not firing, we'll let him adopt a completely negative role.
Yep.
Robert Victor asked, how important is Ben Stratton? Hang about, Robert, we're coming to him. I've got big things planned for Ben Stratton in this show. So it was a tough one, but ultimately I probably would have left the status quo as it was. Yep. I think in terms of positional switches, probably not throwing Cale Hooker forward till halfway through the last quarter was a more costly decision.
I just want to mention a couple of bombers. Look, I thought Essendon's effort, and more on this around the same time you were talking about Stratton, but I was very impressed for the second week in a row with McDonald, Tippett.
Yeah, he's great. His second half of the season has been twice as good as the first half.
And when he's on song, of course, he causes such panic by not just the things he does, but also by the implied pressure that he will bring because he's such a relentless chaser and tackler.
Yeah.
So, really well played for him. And, you know, Devon Smith, we've sung his praises a number of times this season because, as we predict, he'll probably be the Essendon best and fairest. But I had a close look at him on Saturday, and it's more than just running and getting the ball. It's the first, for a little guy, his first step that gets him either out of trouble or breaks a tackle is really only second to Tom Mitchell. It was quite similar, you know. He's a star, and I'm just amazed that he's not caught more.
Yeah,
powerful little man.
One of the best tacklers in the competition too. The guy we should mention just quickly, Zach Merritt, he was awesome. Now, he had a pretty slowish start to the season, but again, in this revival, he has been a absolute key to that. I thought it was a fantastic game by Zach, and you know, they looked pretty shot to ribbons when they came off, but he was quite distraught because he'd given more than any other Essendon player anyway. So, yep. Look, that's the end for the Bombers, and I think they'll certainly be thinking what might have been, no doubt, not just that Carlton game, but they lost to Freo, they lost to the Western Bulldogs, and the Bulldogs weren't playing well.
Yep. But not a wasted season, because no. I think their philosophy and their setup at the start of the year wasn't quite right, and they've worked it out.
No, and I think they're a more multifaceted side now than they were last year. So I'm prepared to accept there has been some improvement even without making finals. However, it makes 2019 the absolute acid test for them.
I think there's been improvement in Worsfold. I really felt that, you know, he was bringing some old school, we'll score more than you type bravado to his coaching. But I think it's ended up a bit more sensible than that. Yeah,
well, a couple of positional moves which have been good too. Mark Bagley forward being paramount. All right, let's move on. We're getting the wind up from about 500 different directions.
Oh, just Judy Anderson wanted to know.
Judy Anderson, can Hawthorn beat Geelong? Yep. Yes, I'm tipping Hawthorn to beat Geelong.
And Judy, Geelong can also beat Hawthorn.
They could.
Yeah.
Which doesn't leave many other possibilities, really, does it?
One more.
We could be back here next week. No, we won't.
We will be.
It could be a draw.
Let's move on.
Okay, the Showdown, another rip-roaring game. Are Showdowns ever duds? Look, there's been a few, but geez, you can't argue with the two this year. The first one was just incredible, and for me, that was the game of the season. This one wasn't far behind. You just knew, even halfway through the first quarter, it was going to be neck and neck. It's just, you know, no matter where they are on the ladder, it's one of those classic games. Full credit to the Crows too, because they really, if you looked at the key indicators, certainly inside 50s, they should have really won by a bit more than they did, which is, you know, it's a decent comment on Port Adelaide hanging tough, but geez, they blew it, Port. They were, 10 points up with 4 or 5 minutes left.
Yeah,
they should have bottled it from there, I reckon.
Yeah, they, you know what? I thought that they were I thought they'd played catch-up most not catch-up, but I really felt that Adelaide had that game, as you said, numbers-wise.
Yeah.
And, you know, some Wingard precision. Farrell bobs up. And then, almost within a twinkling of an eye, I thought they'd broken the Crows' spirit. But I don't know, obviously, enough about Showdowns to understand that those games just go on even into the car park afterwards.
But or the Ramsgate.
Yeah, but I just felt in a normal game of football, didn't you feel that Port Adelaide had sort of had the game taken from them, and it was winding down to a Port win?
Well, I thought Port had them, and I thought that exactly the same thing in the round 8 game when Port were 3 goals up and Adelaide went bang, bang, bang and actually hit the front. So I think, do you think the Crows are going to look on this as a wasted season, or do you think Adelaide has more of a case than Essendon to think, oh, luck wasn't on our side? I think they do.
They do, but when you have a look at the players that they've lost throughout the season, and it's been obviously a consequential amount of players, have they got the depth to cover it? And I say they do. So I'm not really looking at guys like Greenwood and Galucci. You know, these are good discoveries. Really, they might need to have a look at some of the older players, some of the more established players in the team. It was interesting that Jake Kelly got dropped, wasn't it? Did you expect that?
I think he's been dropped before.
Yeah, I'm saying I thought had become an established player, but you know that backline now reads Keith and Dode. So
Dode. I can't pronounce it. Is it Dode?
No, it doesn't matter.
He's a serious rising star chance, I think.
Yeah,
he's been terrific.
Eddie Betts is a question that.
Yeah, I reckon you can squeeze another season out of him.
Yeah, I'm just saying that, you know, it's, when you look at who was missing for Adelaide, I'm partly, you also have to question who was there for Adelaide.
Yeah.
And did they do the job? Sam Jacobs, not the year that he's come into the season with. These things do count.
I reckon they'll bounce back pretty hard. Like, I don't think you're going to see them sort of gently fall away. Just from Tony, he asked, do you think Hinkley, and we haven't talked about this yet, I'm going to come to this later as well, but the controversial score review.
Yep.
My big qualm about it was they didn't spend long enough looking at the footage. Tony asked, do you think Hinkley cracked the sads in the presser and should have just taken the decision as something that happens, or was he right to bag the AFL read the cameras? I didn't mind him having a go, actually, because I'm with him. I think the excuses about, prohibitive cost and we can't come to an agreement with the broadcasters, blah, blah, blah. I think they're all running a bit sort of thin after nearly 10 years since the Tom Hawkins incident in the 2009 Grand Final. You know, we've got a multi-billion-dollar broadcasting rights agreement. Can't we just get the technology right?
I think Hinkley had every right to bring it up because he was talking about the process that is failing the game. And the failure comes because I believe it was, in the first instance, rushed through by Adrian Anderson and Andrew Demetriou. You know, when the World Game Soccer wanted to bring in goal line technology, it took years to bring it in because there needed to be uniformity wherever it was used in terms of the technology that was used.
Yeah.
And they go to a graphic not dissimilar to Hawkeye. Now, it's a 3D imaging. If we can't use that to decide if balls are over the line, then don't bother with the process, because we know that there are parallax
view.
The view, and it is. You only need to go to a fun house to know that the optical view can be absolutely distorted by the angle of the camera.
I thought your whole life was a fun house, Finey. Can I just say
it's a something house?
Can I just say, just on this, I think we've got a big problem here, because I don't think now they can abandon it. The problem being that they might abandon goal reviews, but do you think that's going to stop the broadcasters still showing replays of shots that hit the post?
That's the problem. The problem is
that's not going to stop.
We can't de-evolve the replay that brings this situation to
correct
into focus.
So imagine then.
Well, you know what they can do?
What
they really can do, and there was the most appalling review I've seen in football, I reckon, this round. It was an umpire. The ball was touched. It was parried through the goals, and the goal umpire said one behind touched, and the goal umpire wanted a review. The field umpire wanted a review. I think when the goal umpire is clear in making a decision, the field umpire has to butt out.
Yeah, I suspect.
Not even run up and look at them like expecting something to
I think the other issue here, in glorious hindsight, I'm not sure Steve Hocking should have come out and said, we've told them we don't want them to take more than 30 seconds, because I think getting the right decision is more important than how long it takes to do that. All right, let's move on. Game 3, another rip-roaring... no, the phrase I was looking for just didn't come there. Anyway, it was a great game.
Rip snorter?
Yeah, something like that. I don't know, I was going to get Rogering in there for some reason, but that sort of reminds me of Blackadder. Sydney and Collingwood at the SCG. Another epic, and the Swans pulling out a badly needed win, 11-7-73, beating the Pies 10-11-71. More bad luck for the Pies on the injury front. Darcy Moore, of course, going down early, which made life a lot easier for Buddy Franklin, who cashed in, it's fair to say, with 6 goals.
This was of all the nail biters, this was my favourite one. Was it? Oh, what a last quarter.
Yeah, it was good.
I mean, Collingwood were done, and they showed a tremendous amount of character to get back in the game. Also, magnificent goal kicking. The goal by Hoskin Elliott from the boundary.
That's a ripper.
A drop punt. But the goal that actually won the game for Sydney by McCartan, well, you know, I mean, the lesser McCartan is the greater McCartan. And I wonder what's going to happen with the Higgins goal for goal of the year. Do we sort of exclude it, knowing that mark of the year by Ablett in hindsight was not a mark?
No, it's goal of the year.
Well, I'll tell you, that McCartan goal was magnificent. How he summons the power,
lying
on the ground to get that goal.
Isn't there an argument he could have been pinged for dropping the ball?
Yes, because it was a drop kick.
Correct.
Well, technically, I'm glad you said that.
Okay.
Any player that is held and the ball touches the ground before it's kicked, technically that's dropping the ball. That would have been one of the bravest, smartest calls. I'm glad you picked up on that, because you're right.
Now, off Facebook, Mark Luxonen has said, what about Moore's direct jibe at Collingwood's fitness staff? Now, I've got to be honest here,
I don't know.
I don't know about that.
No,
so can you, or anyone, give us some more information on that and we'll give you a view. Suffice to say, he's coming off. The injuries are really hitting Collingwood harder than any other club now. I think I saw a list up on the screen, I think after the game. There was something like 9. There were 9 players, but at least 6 or 7 who are definitely in their best 22.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I've got them finishing 3rd on the ladder despite this. I mean, it's a real testament to their depth.
It is a fantastic performance by them. I mean, RoCo has emerged as an important player.
Well, it's terrific.
Cox wasn't able to hit the scoreboard. His kicking was a bit off, but gee, he's vital for them.
Mm-hmm.
This is a forward line that you could not have imagined at the start of the year. Dacos becomes an irrelevant player. I wonder whether Fasolo has a role to play.
Oh, geez, it'd be a gamble. What if he's fit, you mean?
Well, he's played in the VFL.
Yeah.
His form in the VFL is quite good.
Yeah.
They can't play Elliott. I mean, it's the one other player that they can go to. I'm just saying that it has been a movable feast, but that's not unlike the Bulldogs in 2016.
What about the Swans? Were you expecting? I tipped Collingwood. I think you tipped Collingwood as well. They're a great character club, aren't they?
That's the word that comes to mind. More character than a Shakespearean play, but in the end, not enough talent.
Well, like we said at the outset, I've got them actually finishing 2 spots outside the 8.
Yeah.
I mean, their run is as tough as anyone. Melbourne next week at the G. Now, I don't care what anyone says. They don't play their best footy at the G.
No, that's going to be a bridge too far.
GWS, you couldn't possibly tip them against the Giants, who have won, 9 of their last 10, and Hawthorn at home. But even giving them that victory against Hawthorn, if they lose to both Melbourne and GWS, they won't make it.
Look, it's that midfield that's starting to age before our eyes that is where it falls apart, because you might think that with Grundy's issues and a one-man forward line, it's problems forward and back, but I thought Alex Johnson did a good job.
Oh, yeah, no, we should talk about him.
He played well.
He did, and, look, you've heard a lot about it during the week, but it is an incredible story, isn't it?
So, it's that midfield that's just not, it doesn't have the power, depth.
Explosiveness, I think is what it lacks.
Yeah, and, you know what, Heaney's a great player, but not yet consistent, not a consistent champ that fills the breach. So, it's just getting a bit tough on them. And I also think that Callum Sinclair is, he's been bashed all year. It's going to the well over and over for Callum. It's starting to show a few signs. Yeah.
Now, Mark has added to his previous comment. He was interviewed on 9 News about hamstring injuries and stated Collingwood need to look elsewhere for solutions. That's an interesting comment in itself.
Oh, well, the clubs do that. I mean, that's...
But solutions to what? I mean, a hammy is it's a trauma injury, isn't it?
Oh, no, but, somebody like Nathan Freeman went overseas. The players with chronic hamstring injuries, Germany has been a sort of trailblazer in sometimes controversial techniques. He might
Calves blood.
Well, yeah, various insertions and injections of legal substances that go, almost to the cutting edge of...
well, look, if I was a Collingwood...
What is it that we're going to put in ourselves eventually?
Alcohol?
No.
I'm glad I don't. If I was Collingwood's medical department, I'd be pretty unhappy about that comment. All right, let's move on. And another cracking game. They just kept coming. Friday night, the start of the round, Richmond-Geelong. Yep. Great effort by the Cats, and probably a bit stiff in the finish. The Tigers 12-13, 85. Just hanging on against the Cats 12-10, 82. 4 goals to Rewalt for the Cats. 3 to Menzel, very dangerous early. 2 to the debutant ruckman, Sean. It is Sean, isn't it?
Ryan Abbott.
Who's Sean Abbott? Well, g'day, Sean. He might be, I think.
Bowler?
Yeah. G'day, Sean. G'day, Ryan. Anyway, he kicked 2. And what about the game of Dangerfield? Fantastic, Kelly. But we expect that. Tim Kelly. Yep. Wow, what a fantastic recruit he's been. All the big names up there for the Cats. Look, in the end, Gary Ablett nails that shot. In the last, you'd expect him to get probably 9 times out of 10.
I felt that had he kicked that, it would have been a bit of theft.
Oh, so you didn't feel like Geelong deserved to win?
Oh, no, they deserved it because that's to beat Richmond at the MCG. Gee, to run them that close is a magnificent effort. So they deserve all of the 4 points and all the kudos they would have received. But just in the way the game played out...
they came late, the Cats.
They did come late, and I'm not saying it was like the 89 grand final. It was a bit tighter than that, but Richmond just fell asleep at the wheel a bit just at the very end of the game.
They did. I thought it was perhaps the first time this year when I've looked at the Tigers and thought, they just might have thought this was put to bed when it wasn't. Good one off Facebook from Paul. The Cats recruited for the now. If we finish 7th, 8th or miss out in finals, would you consider 2018 a failure? And would you give Chris Scott a contract extension? If they miss out 7th or 8th, is that a failure? Not necessarily. They miss out, certainly a failure. Would I give Scott an extension? That's a really interesting question. I don't know if I can decide on the spot, to be honest, because I can see pros and cons. But I reckon this group has another 1 or 2 years of a flag tilt left in it.
Can I tell you, I like them more this year than last year when they were in the top 4.
Why?
Because of the...
A few more strings to the bow?
Well, the inclusion of Kelly. Kelly was a really smart recruit.
Yeah.
And I think we've seen life without... I would say most likely that we've seen a life without Harry Taylor. So the back line will have a new life, and it's surviving without him.
Yeah.
I don't mind.
There's a few more strings to the bow.
Wouldn't they like a good goal-kicking small forward?
Yes, they would. Wouldn't most sides?
Yep.
Very quickly, Con says Luke Darcy was proclaiming last night Bucks as his coach of the year. Yet if Tigers go back-to-back, where does that leave Hardwick? Well, officially, Hardwick will be the AFL Coach of the Year. It's awarded to the premiership coach. The AFL does. Mm-hmm. AFL Coaches Association might see it differently. The guy who's completely ignored in these discussions, as are his team, is Adam Simpson. Well, he's done a fantastic job with the Eagles this year. Yeah, no one thought they'd be in the 8.
How about Brad Scott?
Again, yeah. No, I don't think it's cut and dry. All right, we've got to keep moving along. Speaking of the Roos and Brad Scott, Brisbane, North Melbourne. And another cracker, Finey. Up at the Gabba.
I love this game.
16-11, 107 the Roos. Just getting over the line from Brisbane. 16-8, 104. 3 to McLuggage. 2 to Rayner, Robinson, Matheson, McInerney, Zorko for the Lions. 3 to Zeeble for the Roos. 2 to Walker, Atley, Waite and Turner. Cracking game. Played in beautiful Gabba sort of middle of winter conditions.
It was warm.
And plenty of drama at the end too, courtesy of Cam Rayner, which we're not going to talk about at length here because I've got that covered as well later on. What do you think of the game?
This, unlike the Richmond-Geelong game where Adelaide had a chance at the end, you'll talk about Rayner and the goal that he probably should have kicked or could have kicked. Kid's a beauty. Brisbane were coming so hard at the end. They had plenty of chances to win that game.
Oh, they did.
North stopped well short of the line, in fact.
Yeah.
They certainly missed Sean Higgins, no question, because when they were on top, they had a lot of midfield ball and really probably should have put the game beyond doubt a couple of times when they got to 24 points up. Trent Dumont played a really good game. I'm glad for him. Majak Daw continues to be just a powerful, ominous, looming figure.
Most improved player in the AFL.
Waite's return was okay, but Brisbane, you know what, with much less to play for and probably seeing the game out of their reach, 23 points down in the last quarter, showed everything you'd want from a team that is going to make big moves up the ladder next year. Yeah,
no, I couldn't agree more. They've been terrific, I think, particularly in the back half of the year. And
the hamburger you'd never eat was brilliant, by the way. The McLuggage. I mean, he just look at his numbers. You
could just see the inexperience, though, as they tried to get the winning goal. They just at least 5 or 6 times in the last 5 minutes where just one handball too many. Or
it was a human panic machine.
Yeah, it was, but that'll come. That'll come.
Yep.
No, they're definitely on the right track, the Lions, and looking pretty good. All right, let's go to Etihad Stadium Saturday night.
And let's leave after about half an hour.
Well, I've got to say I was mainly watching the other game, but a good win for the Bulldogs. Been a while between drinks for them. 15-13, 103, beating your Saints 9-14. 68. What was the extent of that turnaround? I'm sure you know.
St Kilda were 29 points up.
Okay.
And obviously, within a twinkling of an eye, found themselves 41 points down.
What happened?
4 points down. First of all, in the first quarter, it should be noted that even though St Kilda have kicked 4 goals to none, those 5 points kicked by the Western Bulldogs, 4 of them were sitters. I mean, they just missed goals that they should have got. So maybe not all that indicative of what was happening, but what did develop in the second quarter when St Kilda extended that lead halfway through the quarter was that Bulldogs players were not working hard enough. You would be justified in asking the question whether or not Bontempelli cared at that point in time. Bulldogs free-running, high possession-winning players, McRae and Hunter, were running so wide that they weren't impacting on any of the clearances. And it was really only Joe Henderson running off the half-back line that mattered. But I'll tell you what, Bontempelli woke up, St Kilda went to sleep, Seb Ross had a great start, he couldn't finish it off, the rest of the midfield were no good. Hickey went down injured. St Kilda put Carlisle into the ruck, and then they just struggled. You know, they dropped Rowan Marshall, which was stupid anyhow. They struggled for big man tap use. They stopped running, and they added a beautiful element to their game, which only St Kilda fans can really appreciate, and that is their kicking, which has been bad at goal, was bad from everywhere, all around the ground, and was honestly, given that it was at Etihad, was below VFL standard.
Well, have a look at the third quarter.
It was abysmal.
Have a look at the third quarter. 8 goals, 6 to 5 behind.
Oh, yeah, it was, the first 10 minutes of the quarter was competitive. The last 20 minutes, I mean, their last 2 or 3 goals, they were tries, not goal. They were walking them in the goal square.
All right, one word answer. Does Alan Richardson survive?
Well, he's been given the
back end.
He does. I'll give you the answer. Simon,
one word.
Left lean, yes.
That's one word, 2 syllables.
Yeah, he's been.
No, I want a yes or no. Does he survive?
He does.
Okay, next question, one word answer. Should he survive?
He should not.
That's 3 words.
No.
Thank you.
That's hard for me to say because I really like Richo.
Yeah, no, same.
No,
same.
I really do. But this ain't going anywhere, folks.
Never give a one-word answer where 3 will suffice. All right, let's move on. Game number 7. And speaking of shellackings, they ramped up the shellackings a bit more on Sunday. What a contrast to Saturday's footy. The first 2 games today were GWS 23-13, 151, defeated Carlton 7-4-56. So the Giants, a 5-goal quarter, followed by a 7-goal quarter, followed by a 4-goal quarter, followed by another 7-goal quarter. They were doing it on the bit from about 15 minutes into this game. There's one brief period, when was it? Start of the second quarter where Carlton started to put a bit together, but it faded pretty rapidly. And it was a bit of a training drill for the Giants, really.
This game will just go down as...
what else you can say?
Well, inexperienced Carlton, they'll learn, blah, blah. No, look, Carlton... I use the word shamed occasionally. Their last quarter was unfathomable. GWS had 4 players gone for the afternoon.
Yeah, well, there was a moment in which there was 16 players on the ground.
They then had other players that came off even though no one came on.
Yeah.
How you can... What was it, 7 goals to what in the last quarter?
It was 1 goal straight to 7-3.
That is unacceptable when there are no rotations and sometimes you're playing against 1 or 2 less players. Now, come on.
Question from Mark Chapman. What about Brendan Bolton? Does he survive? Yes, he does.
Should he survive?
Yes, he should.
Why?
Well,
15-word answer.
It's going to take me half the show to frame it. No, because I think it's not even necessarily a huge vote of confidence in him. I think that to change coach now, they just go back 2 steps. They're rebuilding an entire list. So whoever the new coach is has to get a list in his image, the list he wants to work with, the type of game plan he wants to pursue. You can't just magically switch coaches unless you're a much better credentialed side, a good side that's fallen on hard times. The Blues aren't that. They're building from the ground up. You understand the difference? So they would be going back another few steps in my view. I reckon this needs to be given another 1 or 2 years.
his green shoots have been trampled on, gnawed at, and basically need to reshoot.
Yeah. The
aphids.
I was just thinking of Alan Seal.
Aphids.
Alan Seal.
Yeah.
The aphids have got to them. All right, game 8. I'm getting a bit stupid. At the MCG, and they should have packed up and gone home at quarter time in this one too. Melbourne 21-17, 143. Defeated Gold Coast 7-5-47. 96 points. The quarter time score, Gold Coast 1 goal straight, Melbourne 9 goals 3, 57 points.
Okay.
No, I heard you say.
They really tried their guts out, Gold Coast. This is very different to Carlton's effort. Maybe because their terrible quarter was the first quarter, but Stuart Dew, and we got a good insight into Stuart Dew because on the TV you heard him at the quarter time breaks. You know, he actually praised them for the 1 goal they got in that first
which is
quarter.
good because we didn't have to hear the commentators.
Well, I'm going to talk about that a bit later, but they really they lost Peter Wright in the first quarter. That left them with Jared Witts and no other talls on the ground. Jack Leslie, who's sort of their backup backman, ended up having to go forward. He'd never kicked a goal in footy. Had a couple of tries, but didn't look like a forward. There was no height. And you know what? They really tried their guts out. Now, they were overpowered, outskilled, outmatched, but I don't think going home tonight that Stuart Dew is ashamed of the Suns.
5 goals to Alex Sexton, give him a rap.
Yeah, that was a good effort, wasn't it?
What about the Demons, though? Like, they deserve a rap for the way they've been able to really put ordinary sides away, I reckon. Not everyone can do that. Their percentage is testimony to that.
Yes.
Mark says Melbourne will be Richmond's biggest challenger. I don't think so. Just prefer others.
Well, maybe just on injuries they will be, as West Coast and Collingwood.
Fair point. Look, their best is intoxicating in a way. I've got my doubts about whether they can produce that 3 finals in a row.
You know, for a team that I thought had a lot of inside mids because they had Viney and Clayton Oliver, and they really don't have enough inside strength at the moment. Gorn gives them such good service that they feel they might not need it.
Well, Sydney next week is a great test for them, isn't
it? Yeah, it will be.
And Sydney smashed them in that game last year from memory. I think won very easily. All right, final game of the round, and the ramifications of this one are huge. Sorry, we've just got the mailman knocking on the door. I just told him to go away, but he can go away. No, mate, we got our Bible delivery this week. West Coast Fremantle, crushing win to the Eagles, 21-16, 142, defeating Fremantle 13-6, 84. If you missed us off the top, we have talked about the Andrew Gaff incident, massive ramifications for the Eagles. I think he'll get 4 at an absolute minimum, but probably more likely to get 6 based on the precedent last year of the Tom Bug Callum Mills incident.
John just makes a good point that, of course, there's Brayshaws in both camps, Fremantle and West Coast.
Hamish Brayshaw plays for West Coast, yes. Would have been a bit awkward at the post-game convivials in the Brayshaw family, I reckon. Look, if you want to see what we had to say about that, wait till the end of the show, go back to the start. But let's talk about the game itself. Another very, very imposing performance by the Eagles, I thought. 4 goals to Darling, 4 to Cripps, 3 to Ryan. 2 to Vardy, who has come in and done what's required in Nat Nui's absence. Lysette, 2 goals to him as well. Thought their midfield looked dominant. It's a game they should have won by a lot, but showdowns can be unpredictable. Derbies can be unpredictable. I thought in that case, they say derby. They say derby, we say derby. A 58-point margin in a derby is pretty convincing to me.
In Fremantle, we've discussed them. They've got so few players that really compete at the top end. Mundy played well again. He tried hard. And Lachie Neale runs around, had Hutchings for company, of course, makes it more difficult. But for the West Coast Eagles, again, personnel becomes an issue with players going down. Good to see Liam Ryan back. He is an exciting character, is he not?
Oh, with him and Rioli, and there's their forward setups really imposing. And look, the Gaff thing, it really does make a difference. Had the Gaff thing not happened, I'd be sitting here now saying I cannot believe more people don't think the Eagles can win the flag, because they can absolutely win it. Do I still think they can win it? Maybe. maybe, but I think
hard.
It makes it hard.
Darling's interesting. Came into the game out of form. His first 2 shots at goal were terrible, and he grew into his better self. So that's great news for the Eagles.
Glenn Mitchell in WA reports that Gaff received a standing ovation from West Coast fans when he came off the ground. Yeah.
It's that sort of thing, though. When you go to a derby or a showdown and it's built up as, us versus them,
yeah,
this would have been a show of support from the West Coast fans for Gaff in the face of Freo fans. And it was pointed out on the radio coverage that I was listening to that there were no replays of this at the ground.
Well, that's good.
So they were really going on here.
I wonder if someone stood up and said that one's for Phil Reid in 2000.
On the back of Kickett.
Yeah.
The Demolition Derby.
Demolition Derby. All right, that's it for the wraparound. What a massive weekend of games that was. It's time now, Mark, for Hot or Not.
I don't even bother looking at that anymore.
I'm going to rip off my shirt when we can do that.
How about, what's that?
Yeah, rock and roll.
No, that's the
rock and roll.
The Devil Horns by, what was his name? He was in Black Sabbath.
Osbourne?
No, he was in Black Sabbath for a little bit.
Ozzy Osbourne?
No, he was a...
Tommy Iommi?
No, he didn't.
Oh, Ronnie James Dio.
Ronnie James Dio did that first.
A controversial view too. My favourite Black Sabbath stuff is with Ronnie James Dio on lead vocals and not Ozzy Osbourne.
But wasn't he the Devil's Horn?
Yeah, no, I think you might be right.
Or was he ordering 4 beers?
I'll tell you what, the phone lines are running hot here at Southern FM. Yep. I don't know.
But we want your communications via Facebook.
Yes, keep sending through the questions, comments and heckles. We will take them all on. All right, hot or not, I'm going to kick us off, Finey. And what a magnificent mulleted man this bloke is. Ben Stratton. All right, it's become de rigueur, the mullet on this guy, but he would have to be...
Hardwick, of course.
He would have to be one of the most underrated defenders in the AFL over the last 10 years. Just gets the job done, never gets much kudos, but you couldn't ignore him in this game. Of course, it helped that the Bombers weren't squaring up the numbers down back at times, and he was able to drift off and take a lot of intercept marks. I think 7 all up. Ended up with 11 marks for the game, 19 disposals. He was to them in defence what Gunston was to them in attack. I thought he's just a great reader of the play. Yep. He's strong when he has to be, tough in the right sense of the word. Good skills. He's a solid all-round backman.
Great decision maker.
Yeah, he is. And I don't think he was important to them even when they were at their heyday, and he's become even more important now. So it was a great game. Has to be in the votes, and I'm pretty sure in the coaches' votes he'll rank very highly.
Number 1 in the AFL for... no, this isn't a stat. This is an observation.
Mullins?
Maybe, but for disguising out of bounces. Always seems to be able to get it, tumble it out,
Yeah,
just trying to reach the ball.
Yeah, no, good call. It is an art form.
He's very good at it.
It is an art form. Do we have a comment on Ben Stratton? Oh, air guitar. Yeah. Oh, Lassalle thought I was having a seizure.
Yeah, we've been through that.
Yeah, no, it's like when Kenny's playing the video game on South Park and he actually does have a seizure, but they just drag his dead body around with him until the rats bust out of it at the end. All right, you're up.
Hot for 3 players that at their clubs had to wait a long time for a game of football, and all of them brilliant stories, and amazing they all played on the same weekend. Nathan Freeman at the Saints via Collingwood, 2013 top 10 draftee, and that was his first game, and he did not look out of place at all. Then, of course, we've spoken about Alex Johnson. A great comeback, but a very important comeback. And the fact that they won and they got around him at the end of the game was wonderful.
Did you look up how much a bottle of milk was when Alex Johnson last played AFL footy? 10 shillings.
Yeah, that's right. It was delivered by a man on a horse, or with a horse, and had little gold tops.
And a horse was in the coach's box.
And finally, Vandenberg of
Aaron Vandenberg,
of Melbourne, something like 2 years. I think his last game was the last game of 2016. And apparently his last game was a 111-point loss at Geelong. So he was able to enjoy a more fruitful weekend, and I'll talk about barracking from the commentator's box, but a few people wanted him to kick a goal and he went close a couple of times.
All right, good call. A not for me next, and it goes to, listen carefully, not score reviews, score reviewers. Now, you can have the best technology in the world, Finey, but I think sometimes it gets superseded by human nature and human error. That is perhaps unavoidable, but I am not convinced that the people doing the score reviewing in AFL footy are necessarily the best people for the job.
Who are they?
Well, we don't know who they are. We don't know what qualifications they have, but there seems to be plenty of very debatable calls they make. Now, the controversial Josh Jenkins goal. My biggest issue, there was a few weird things about this. And if you follow me on Twitter, yes, you'll be bored silly with this because I kept going on about it. But there was one replay of it which I swear appeared to have the ball going in front of the post. Another angle, you'd swear the ball went behind the post. So I've got no problem with that, some sort of optical illusion, or I need, like you, to get a pair of glasses. However, my biggest problem with the Josh Jenkins thing was the length of time they took to review the evidence. It was all of about 10 seconds.
It was rapid.
So this gets back to what we were saying about Steve Hocking. Now, yeah, okay, it gets a bit frustrating when you've got a 30-second wait when they're deliberating on whether a shot's a point or out in the full. But this has ended up deciding a game, and I think that the reviewers owed it to everyone involved to at least take as much time as possible to be reasonably sure that the evidence was not conclusive enough to overturn the original decision. I think they've got to get. I think the process needs to be more formalised. I think it needs to be more uniform. I'm pretty sure some reviewers go quicker on a decision than others. I think we need to know who these people are. It's a pretty important bloody job.
Yep.
We know nothing about them.
Yep. Yeah. We have so many
hot umpire head cam. What? That's from Jaron.
Yeah, Jaron wants a umpire head cam.
Oh, okay. I don't think that'd necessarily help.
No, the fact is we do not have the uniform camera coverage for each goal at every ground. We also have a huge issue with touched off the boot, this bent finger search.
Yeah. Which was never supposed to be part of it.
When the biggest aid in knowing whether a ball's touched is the sound, and we don't use the sound. You know, when you're umpiring a game of footy or playing a game of footy, it's the sound that the ball makes.
One of the Adelaide assistant coaches today threw up the idea of posts lighting up on contact, like the Zing bails.
Oh, that'd be great. We'll have aeroplanes landing at grounds.
No, but as an aid to definitely knowing whether it's hit a post, that makes sense.
And I know this is only a small part of something that really irks me is the more we rely on technology and then more technology to get it right, and various other things that we've done to AFL football, we are creating a sport separate from Australian rules played right around the country.
Well, the reliance on technology is happening everywhere, Finey. I can guarantee you that in 10 years' time, it won't be us sitting here presenting this, it'll be two robots. In fact, some media organisations have already gone to those lengths with their football shows, Finey. You're up.
I thought he was a robot. I knew it. Not hot is commentators barracking for the kill. Now, look, I know that the Melbourne Gold Coast game was a fait accompli, and after that big first quarter by Melbourne, but we were fed statistics that Melbourne had never won by more than 100 points 2 times in a season, or hadn't done it since 1822 or something.
What about the one at the end when they failed to win by 100? It's the third time they've won by 90 points.
The pressure on Fritsch to kick the goal, but also get Vandenberg to, at the end, let's get Vandenberg to kick the 100-point margin. And really, there are Gold Coast supporters out there, and I know as a St Kilda fan, over the years on the receiving end of thrashings, to hear commentators salivating like hyena around a dead carcass, just enjoying the kill, that's not the role, and that's not fair, and that's not commentary, and that's not hot.
Do you think they should have been talking it up? So if they just get another 15 goals, they could be right back in this.
No, of course not. But from a long way out, they were earth-riding Gold Coast and wanting the biggest possible margin.
The Suns are a soft target.
Yeah, people barrack for Gold Coast. I'm saying, when I barracked for St Kilda, I didn't really enjoy halfway through the second quarter the record book's being pulled out. Let's beat them by 200.
You're already up in the social club by then, weren't you?
No, I've never let. If I go to a game, I don't leave early.
All right. My last one's a hot, and look, he's had plenty of raps, but not for a while. Maybe people have sort of got bored with the novelty factor. But watching Friday night, Richmond Geelong, I was really drawn to Toby Nankervis. I love him, Finey. I love everything about him. He's a competitor. I love his presence. I think he's a real spiritual leader for the Tigers, which is no mean feat because they've got a few. But even in structural terms, he is a very, very important player. And I think the evidence of that, probably more so even last week when they played Collingwood, that every time Collingwood came back into the, oi, where's our hot or not thing, boys? All you got to do, is adjust Windows so that it never...
No, don't worry about it. It's back.
Okay. Anyway, I digress. Every time he came off the ground for a spell against the Pies, Grundy got on top and Collingwood got themselves back in the game. So he's a critical part of the equation for the Tigers. But, for a guy who, let's be honest, how many people when Sydney gave him up thought, oh yeah, this guy's going to be really important for the Tigers? I reckon plenty of people wouldn't have thought he'd necessarily get a game ahead of Sean Hampson. Well, he's been absolutely sensational, a really important part of their flag, and if they win it again, he'll be just as important.
Yeah, cleverly used. He's a big on-baller. They don't worry too much about the hit-outs with him. Where does he rank in Nankervis or Nankervi for you?
You're gonna pull up another one here. Ian and Bruce, I'd have ahead of
Which
him.
Ian?
There was one that played for Carlton.
Top the goal kicking.
You've already done this
early
spell.
60s.
You've already done this shtick.
Yeah, no, I haven't because
you have.
Toby is second.
It's the only way I knew about it.
Toby is second for me. I've got Ian Nankervis of Geelong first.
Yeah.
Toby second, and Brian Nankervis.
Oh yes, very good from Rockwiz.
Yeah, poet laureate.
I know Brian. It's a good bloke.
What was his character that did the poems?
Yeah,
loved it. Loved those poems on Hey Hey.
Yeah, I know. I've just had a blank. Anyway, someone Facebook that in.
Yeah.
All right, finish this off. Before we get completely and utterly off track.
No, hot. I really give full praise to those.
Raymond J. Bartholomew's.
Excellent. Well done.
Just came to me.
Good work. Oh, morning dew. So, I can't speak highly enough of the 5 teams that lost the nail biters. Maybe with the exception of Port Adelaide, the other 4 teams were gone in that last quarter. Geelong were gone.
Yeah.
Richmond, I thought, had it, and they really fought it out. Essendon, the Hawthorn, by the end, had the game at their behest, and twice they came at them, which shows a lot of character. Brisbane, especially, they didn't have anything to play for. 4 goals down, and the game was just sort of running out. Young players getting tired. They finished all over North, and Collingwood were fantastic as well. So often you look at the beaten teams, and the summaries of the game will be unfairly lopsided, even if it's 2 points of difference. But I want to say that these 4 losers were every bit as good as the 4 winners.
Well, they were 4 fantastic games that were in doubt right until the last second. So,
Port a bit different. I think Port sort of won that game.
Sarab has just thrown up a separated berth of Ben Stratton and Gary Ayres. Yes, very good call. Yep. Blake Hardwick, of course, the mullet apprentice.
Yes.
I don't know. It's got to be some better test.
It is a bit.
It is, yeah. Thank God for that. He's a different sort of cat, though, Ben Stratton, I think, from all accounts.
Hardwick's a good footballer as well. Tough unit.
In a long line of Hardwicks. Here's another one from Jaron. And what happens if a player hits the post with their bodies? Correct. Like I said, there's a problem with any sort of technology. That is correct. That's in relation to the post lighting up.
That illuminated post, if they do it, I want it to be like the that thing at the Royal Melbourne Show that you hit.
Oh, yeah, and it goes...
Yeah, but it's all different colours.
Yeah.
So it starts red, yellow, green, depending how hard it is the post.
All right, don't make me too jovial, Finey, because you know we're up to in the show.
Oh, yeah.
We're up to that bit in the show.
The round off.
Where we get angry. And I couldn't give it my best last week because I was a bit crook, and I'm still a bit crook, actually. Yep. But I'm going to fire up because there's a trend in footy that is really, really getting on my wick, Finey. I'm sure you can get suitably angry too.
Yep.
And do this intro with me as we now throw to the Rant Off! All right, just count me in.
3, 2, Rant Off!
I'm pissed off with these round the corner kicks, Finey. Steve Johnson has got a lot to answer for. It's about 7 years since Stevie J first caused apoplexy in the commentary boxes by snapping over his shoulder instead of facing the goals. But there's two important things to note in how he went about it. One, this was a guy's kicking skills were already so good, he didn't just make the ball talk, he made it deliver a 2-hour-long oration. And two, generally when Stevie J pulled out the round the corner kick, he was lining up from about the 5th row of seating. What were Cam Rayner and Ollie Wines thinking about on Saturday, Finey? Both at critical moments, both in perfect position for the drop punt. Seriously, I've seen tighter angles on the gun barrel highway. So what did they do? They go the smart-ass round the corner job and stuff up spectacularly. There's a good reason blokes have been using the drop punt for the last 100-odd years, Finey. It works, and it's called less margin for error. You can actually not hit a drop punt properly and still get a half-decent kick out of it. But you miss-hit one of these reverse banana jobs and you're going to make a dick of yourself. Look, I don't want to start sounding like Jason Dunstall, mainly because that's only a small step away from looking like Jason Dunstall. But the guy knows what he's talking about when it comes to kicking goals. And I reckon he'd have the perfect punishment for Rayner and Wines after what happened on Saturday. That's right, guys. I'd be very careful or you might end up having to do a guest spot on Bounce. See, look what it's doing to me. This round the corner stuff is straight out of Gaelic football. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for a cultural appropriation from other sports. But there's so many players now doing it straight in front. I'm starting to feel like I'm watching a game from Dublin's Croke Park. Next thing you know, they'll be drowning in Guinness, putting an O in front of their surnames and telling us the cause of their favourite band. And that, Mark Fine, is just a step too far!
Disagree.
Why?
Because I've played a bit of footy and I...
Oh, what? Sorry, I haven't?
Yeah, no...
Mate, I was John Gardner High School's leading goal kicker 3 years in a row.
I'm surprised you played up forward. No, I just... In kicking the ball, I always thought you get a bit of... You know, some players like it. You get more... You kick the belly of the ball. Silvio Fascini used to do it. Look, Jade Gresham does it, and he never misses. He's a beautiful shot of goal, doing that round the corner kick. Some players like the drop punt. With the around the corner kick, it's less about the ball drop. The ball drop on the drop punt is very important. And you really have to drop it straight on your boot, where you're holding it more for longer with the round the corner kick. So I think players with a bad ball drop prefer it. But I'll say this.
Hang on, wait. Just for
I'll back you up with one thing.
Ollie Wines couldn't have done what he did had he kicked a drop punt. My voice is going.
And Cam Rayner's a beautiful kick and kicks a beautiful drop punt.
Well, he rushed it too.
I was surprised with him.
All right, back me up, quick.
Yep.
You going to back me up?
The Cam Rayner should have kicked the drop punt.
Oh, okay.
He can kick a drop punt.
Tony says Hoskin Elliott showed how to kick a drop punt from an acute angle.
He's a beautiful kick.
I would still argue, and maybe we can get some geophysicists or whoever to actually calculate the margin. Oh, I don't. I was just looking for a scientific sort of word. But I still argue there is less
margin.
Kicking rocks. There is less margin for error. Well, they are when they're wet. Less margin for error with a drop punt than going around the corner. Aaron says, my dad says he remembers guys using torps for those tight on the boundary shots.
How about
or the
flat
punt? Yeah, Peter Hudson, Twiggy Dunn, flat punt.
Flat punt was a great kick from about 30 metres out. That's where you hold the ball.
Yep.
You know, point, and you're kicking the belly of it.
Yep.
The problem about the drop punt is you are kicking the point of the ball, the hardest, smaller area.
You know, the problem with the flat punt is that it's not very aesthetically pleasing kick. It looks ugly. I like a beautiful kick.
Oh, the flat punt is the kick that if you hand a foreigner the ball, he may well flat punt it.
But good point. Twiggy Dunn, of course, to tie the scores in the 77 grand final, goes to torp.
It was great. He took a mark 12 metres out, 30 seconds to go, and he kicked it 70 metres. It went as far as Blighty's kick.
All right, fire up, Finey. I'm going to count you in. Last week, too long. More succinct this week, please. Okay. 3, 2, 1, rant.
I hate Rowan Conley. That was my succinct one.
Oh, it's a long and exclusive.
I love Rowan. Social engineering from the grandstands has gone too far. And we know that there are many decent innovations and also forms of improvement, both for playing the game and watching the game, that now we could not be without. Nobody is asking to go back to days of on-field racism or racism in the stands. Of course not. We've moved on from that. And likewise, we've hopefully moved on from thuggery that marked some football in the 70s and 60s, and we'll see that with the Gaff tribunal, I'm sure, during the week. But we have gone a step too far, Rowan, because now there is a move, backed by Gillan McLaughlin, supported, I heard, by some special commentators on the weekend, that this, and Bruce McAvaney hates it, which means it's probably good, this unseemly and now considered antisocial act of razzing an opponent or getting in an opponent's face when he misses an easy shot of goal needs to be stamped out of the game. Now, I've heard past players as special comments men trying to do the right thing and appear to the general public as being, you know, good-hearted people and saying it's terrible, it's wrong. It's I heard one person describe it as workplace bullying last weekend.
Who said
that?
A
form of bullying. It was said last weekend on the Channel 7 commentary that this is a form of bullying. And it just shows how little these people know about football. It's not a form of bullying. It's a form of psychological testing. If somebody misses an easy shot, get in their face. Razz them. Because the next time they have an easy shot at goal, the pressure mounts. I'll tell you one thing I've never seen a footballer do, and that is when somebody misses a shot after the siren to win a game, I've never seen the opposition go up and give him hell. No, the game's over then. While the game's on, it's fair play, butt out, and stop social engineering from the grandstands.
Well, it's a very un-PC rant, but I'm about halfway here. But
well, hang on, it's about...
No, but I think the problem is, and I'm being quite serious, I think the problem with this is that it becomes a bit of a fashionable thing, and then when you get 3 or 4 guys coming in and razzing the bloke, then you risk a brawl erupting as a result.
Oh, well, they'll pay the penalty in thousands of dollars. Now, but a player that's struggling in front of goal, that will add to the pressure on him, won't it? And that's what the opposition wants to happen. Yeah,
yeah. Well, we could extend that perhaps. I mean, imagine Mark says Finey's rant is much mellower. Finey's more like Dr. Phil. He is with the glasses, which I'm going to ask you about.
Well, I'm going blind. I need them.
Yeah,
to read.
No, now I've forgotten what I was going to ask you about.
Razzing of players?
No, it's gone. Thanks, Mark. You threw my bloody train of thought. No, razzing of players.
Is razzing the right word?
Razzing, I don't know. It sounds very grade 6, doesn't it?
Sounds like a red ice block in a...
Oh, no, I know. Could we extend this concept so if I sort of stuff up something in this, you get in my face and go, oh, you got to get the next one right? Or when David stuffs up the time on the segments.
Well, that's what you do. And David is Rowan's son, by the way.
And actually, bugger it, you know what? David today played in the ones and he scored. David actually scored. So big round of applause
well done
for David. David Connolly scored for Ashburton today.
Just on soccer.
Yep.
Very quickly, I watched a game. EPL starts next week.
Yes, can't wait.
Everton had a pre-season. They started their pre-season with their new manager in Austria against a team called ITV Aberdeen.
Yeah, yeah.
They won 22-0.
Oh, what?
Everton won 22-0, and I'll say this much. They had 21 goals, and Aberdeen kicked the best own goal I've ever seen. Lobbed the keeper from 30 metres.
Sounds like a scoreline from an Ashburton game, doesn't it, David? Yes.
Yep.
Okay, quick one. Tony, there's a pic from 1896 of the original goal square from point post to point post and the width of the current square. I have seen that.
Yep.
The one trial yesterday just pushed back congestion. Keep the current one on. I don't like the goal square's idea at all.
Nasty.
Again, without labouring the point, there's so many things we can do before we start worrying about zones or extended goal squares. One, quicker ball ups. Calling for quicker ball ups and then balling it up quicker. It's not rocket surgery, as lots of special comments men have said over the years. That's it, Finey. What a great weekend of footy it was. Big ramifications news-wise with Andrew Gaff, which will be played out shortly. Hurry up. Music's going.
And as I've always said, the worst game of football is still better than going out with my wife and her friends.
Actually, that's a horrible thing to say. Just hang on very quickly. Why are you wearing glasses?
Because
do you actually need them? Yeah. Is this a new... Because they're Ray-Bans, aren't they?
Yeah.
I saw the Ray-Ban thing and I thought these are those wanky designer glasses that you don't really need. Can I try them? Okay, hit the music again. That's it for this week. As I sign off with Mark Fine's glasses, may your football be good football. And good night.
Good night.